Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's live speech and language Q&A session. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist, and I help parents teach their late-talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. So if you've been watching my page, I have done these live Q&As every week. I decided to come on at a little bit of different time of day to see if I might catch some more people. And I do have some great questions already received from some folks on my page. But if you have a question for me today, all you need to do is type that question in the comment section of this video, and I will get to it here on this session. So let's get started. I see there's a few people joining me. Thank you for joining me. I encourage you to like this video. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. All of the support and sharing that all these videos get really helps get the word out. And these live Q&A sessions are real questions from parents. So if you have other questions, or if you're feeling the same, or there's a group that you might belong to where people could benefit from this information, please feel free to share this video. All right, so let's get started with our first question. By the way, I see how there's Anjana, hi, and Mansoor and Joanne. Hi, Joanne. You're kind of a regular on my Q&As. Love to see you. And Rachel and Mary, thank you so much for joining me, ladies. Like I said, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comment section. But we're going to get started with some of the questions that I received on my post about this. And the first one is from one of the moms who is in my Waves of Communication program. Her name's Xiao Qian, and she has done some amazing, amazing work with her little guy. He is 8 years old, or nearly 8, and has completely given up his iPad system to use 100% verbal communication and in sentences. And they've been at this for about 8 or 9 months now and really seen some amazing progress. But she does have a question, and her question is that her child has good articulation during speech therapy or in a semi-structured environment. She's doing a little semi-structured work at home with him too, but everyday life, his poor articulation issue always kicks in. Any suggestions? So it is common for kids as they're learning to talk. You know, late talkers, again, this little guy 8 months ago had very little functional verbal language at all, and now he's making sentences. So the amazing progress that he's made is, of course, it's fabulous. But what often happens with kids is that they, especially when they're late talking and they're interested in starting to use words and they learn the words work for them and everything goes great, they learn how to speak more carefully for everyone else except for parents. Unfortunately, especially with our own kids, the parents get the worst behavior and the worst speech because, remember, before your child learned how to use words, Xiao Qian, he was using all different kinds of behavior to communicate, and you understood what that behavior was. Now you've encouraged him to use words and facilitated language, so he is doing some great improvement with language, but his articulation isn't as good at home. The suggestion I have for you is to, just like you do already, whenever your child says something incorrectly, we like to use a strategy called recasting. So if your child says, "Me go store," and you want him to say, "I go to the store" instead, obviously "me go to the store" isn't correct as far as a sentence structure, and you want to hear the correct sentence structure, then you say, "Oh, I want to go to the store too." So you sort of show the child how to use it functionally. If it's an articulation problem, in her case, a lot of times with late talkers, they start talking with very short bits. So I'm really able to answer this question because I know this person. And her little guy started saying words just by saying the first syllable, like "p" for push, or "w" for want, or "w" for water. So it was difficult to start to tell the difference. He wanted to start to use words, but he wasn't including all the parts. And so let's say that happens again, and he asks for a water, and he says, you know, "What, please?" And she doesn't understand what the "what" is. Then you have to make sure you get your clarification. But again, it's all about recasting what it is the right way water. You would like water. So you're just showing the kids how to do it. Remember, with language facilitation, the rules are the right words, the right way, at the right time, and always easy, happy, safe, and fun. Those are the strategies that apply to everybody. Now, everybody gets different strategies, but the strategies that you have to use are, specific to your family, however you're going to be able to write words the right way at the right time. So as far as this question, the articulation part is always better for parents and always better for other people than parents. Parents always get the worst because you understand anyway. And the best you can do is let your child know that you don't understand them and recast it the right way. All right, let's see. Next question. Looking to see if any more popped in. A lot more people are watching. Thanks for joining me, everybody. We're doing a live Q&A, so if you're just joining me now, go ahead and put your question down in the comments. But I have a couple more here, so I'm going to keep going. All right, next question is from Kelly. Kelly says, how can I encourage my child to at least attempt to use speech without giving up? Which is a great question. So there's not a whole lot of information in this. Like I said, in the other one, I knew the kiddo because the family's in my program. But to get a child to use speech without him giving up usually kind of tells me that you might be prompting him to say things. So for example, if he wants cookies, you say, if you just say cookie, you can have the cookie. And you try and just say cookie. He can say cookie. He might have even said cookie before or whatever, but you're holding out and you're saying, can't have the cookie until you say cookie. And he's giving up and just walking away from you. That happens because late talkers obviously know that you understand their nonverbal messages. He brought you the cookies, he pointed to the cookies, however it is that you knew he wanted cookies, you not only did you not give him the cookies even though you knew he wanted them, you're making him do something else in order to get the cookies. It's kind of like giving a dog a treat for sitting down. So, he wants the treat. It's obvious. It's a dog. It's a treat. He's there. He's drooling. He hasn't communicated to you verbally. Yes, I'd like a treat, please. But you say, in order to get this treat, you just have to sit down. All you have to do is sit down and you can get it. And the dog happily sits down and you give him the treat. That's exactly what you're doing when your child has communicated to you that they want something, like they really want your phone, but you say, you can have the phone as long as you say phone. They don't understand. So it would almost be like your dog sat down, but he didn't get the treat because he knew, like you didn't even ask him to sit down, but he just automatically sat down because he knew that you gave him a treat when he sat down. But when you prompt based on an exchange, like you can't have a thing until you say a word, or you can't do a thing, you want to come up, say up, you want to go, say go, all that is prompting. And late talkers see right through it. And they give up because they know probably at one point you might have given in to that kind of prompting, whining, whatever they did to let you know that they wanted that thing. And it worked for them before, and now it's not working. So you've changed up the rules. And here's the thing about kids with prompting. When you don't give them something, just waiting for them to do an activity, they don't, say something or point or something like that. If you withhold something, waiting for them to do a thing, even after you understand they want it, they don't understand the difference between I just have to do something else and I can never have it. They don't understand that you're not just withholding it because you don't want to, because you're being mean, because you're whatever, because they communicated to you that they wanted the thing and you understood that you wanted the thing. Here's the thing in your hand, right? But now you're not giving it to them. You're just tempting. You're holding it out like the carrot. All you have to do is say phone and you get phone, and that gets old fast for a kiddo. Think about that in your whole life. Like you knew, honey, please, bring me a cup of coffee. And honey says, no, now you have to get up and dance. And then I'll bring you a cup of coffee. Well, you brought me a cup of coffee last week just because I said, honey, please. No, that's not good enough. And that's what your kids think when you're shifting up by prompting them after they've communicated to you. So what you have to do instead is language facilitation and teach them the right words the right way at the right time. And if you want to know strategies on how to do that, just like Xiao Qian learned to teach her boy, that's when you need to get with the speech pathologist. I'm available to teach you exactly what you need to help overcome that stuff, overcome that prompting. So it's really, really important that that goes on. So, all right, Kelly, I hope that was helpful for you. Let's see. Dennis is here. Hey, Dennis. Hi. And Jocelyn. Hi, Jocelyn. And Lila says, thanks for your wonderful help. Oh, I'm so happy that you appreciate that, Lila. I appreciate your comment. If anybody, I see there's more people joining me. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comments. I do have a couple more here, so let's keep moving on. Jocelyn just sent me a question earlier today, and here's what she says. All right, she's really working hard, and this is the truth of almost all, I mean, every family I talk to, especially the kids who are older. This little guy's 3. So if your child is older than 3, you have been probably doing a lot of work with your child to try to get them talking, because at 2 years old is when people are identified, oh boy, if he's not talking by 2, he's already a late talker. And that's when a lot of parents dig in and work hard and try to get their kids talking. So if your child's 3 and a late talker, you've been at this for nearly a year probably, Jocelyn, just like most of the parents in my program. And so here's what Jocelyn says. Jocelyn says, and she's been at it, I tell you, I'm constantly interacting with my son and giving him time to respond. I talk to him as I'm doing daily tasks, explaining what I'm doing. It's just him and I in the household, so I try to keep words in the home flowing. He's 3, but we have about 7 words, but I'm fearful. His receptive language is great, as he does and responds to almost everything I say. What can I do to get things moving? So there's a great example of a strategy that many parents use to facilitate language, what they think is doing facilitating language. So the thing I want to let you know, Jocelyn, is the first thing is the fact that you're talking about all the things that you're doing and lots of words flowing in your household is very important, and it's an important aspect of language facilitation. But here's the thing. I don't know exactly why your child is late talking, but what usually happens to cause late talking is something gets in the way of a child's ability to learn how to use spoken language, to learn how language works, how to understand it. You have to learn that first, and then once you understand what vocabulary is and you learn new words, then you learn how to use it. So what you've done is a great way of demonstrating how to use language to your child, said the right words the right way at the right time all the time. But the problem is this: whatever happens that causes your child to be late talking, no matter what causes it, what happens is there's a period of time, I do this because it's like a period of time, between 18 months and 2 years old is when kids really start to learn the nuts and bolts of how to use language. Before 18 months, unless you have a very exceptional child who's learning a lot more, they're learning words kind of randomly. Mama, shoes, dog, you know, things to kind of, they're just kind of relating vocabulary to the things and experiences in their life. But between 18 months and 2 years, not only is a child already walking, usually by 18 months, it usually starts when kids walk. So if your child was an early walker, that's when it kind of started. If they were a late walker, that's when it kind of started. But when kids start to move around better, their world opens up, right? So they have exposure to so many more things that they need to learn vocabulary for. And they also, because they're exposed to more things, want more things. They want to experience things they love again, and they want to do it again, and they want to know how to make that happen. So they learn to ask. And if in that period of time, when they start to walk or before and up to and through 2 years old, there was something that was going on in your child that stopped their ability, if it was ear, the number one reason is ear problems, ear fluid, but also very common are children diagnosed on the autism spectrum, which is nearly 1 in 40 or more than 1 in 40 now. Any child who's diagnosed on the autism spectrum was identified usually because they weren't able to pay attention and learn the way other children were. No matter what caused the autism diagnosis, that's what really happened. Something got in the way of your child's natural development. It could be physiological, it could be environmental, it could be a lot of different things. But whatever happened, it stopped their natural process of learning language. And what it did was it caused the child to shift in their communication from a verbal language system into a nonverbal physical and visual language or communication system. And instead of using the words over and over again, like dog, to say dog, they might learn signs and use the signs for things, or they might learn behaviors to communicate those ideas. So maybe, or parts of words. So some kids, for the same concept, dog, some of them will use the sign for dog, some of them will say woof, woof, some of them will say wow, wow, some of them will call every animal dog. So it all depends on your child's ability to learn. And what happens is they get shifted down the wrong path, the non-verbal path, right? Not the language, not the learning vocabulary, listening to words. And so they don't mean much to them, so they quit paying attention. It's kind of like if the TV signal's fuzzy, you don't want to pay attention to it, well, you're not going to learn the information on the TV. So you're just going to turn it off and do something else that you can pay attention to that's more enjoyable and easier for you to learn from. So what happened in your little guy's case was he stopped being able to pay attention to language. And here you are using all this beautiful, wonderful language all day long, talking about the things that you're doing, talking about the things that he's doing, expressing all this stuff with just you and him in the household. And I'll guarantee he's not paying attention. Not to every word, not to every sound in every word. Certainly not, because how he's communicating to you is non-verbally, and his brain's thinking in whatever his name is language, his non-verbal language that he's putting together. And all that beautiful talking you're doing, unless you're getting it in his blinders, in his wheelhouse, and letting him know how to process that, he's not understanding it well enough to use it for his own language. But his receptive language is great, so you must be showing him everything and explaining while you're showing him, but he hasn't learned how to put that demonstration and the words that he's heard, all the vocabulary that's in there, doesn't know how to put it together in words and phrases to communicate to you. So what you need to do to make things happen, to get things going, is to show him how to use all those words that are inside of him to communicate all those little things that he's doing non-verbally. And again, in your specific case, it could be any of a million things. Some kids communicate that with meltdowns. Some of them drag people across the room. Some people bring you stuff. Some of them use sign language. Some of them even have been taught to use non-verbal methods like PECs or sign language or things like that. And it's just sort of staying down that non-verbal path. Like, we're still teaching language, but it's non-verbal language. I show you how to shift over into using verbal language and teaching verbal language for all those things that your child knows how to communicate non-verbally. So how to get things going, that's a really long way to explain it, but how to get things going is you have to show him how to use the words for the things that he is communicating non-verbally. And that's how you do it. So let's see. All right. Here's a question online. Maggie, I don't know, AR, says we got a receptive language disorder diagnosis last week. He has improved drastically as far as his vocabulary. It isn't clear, but we figure out what he is saying. How can we help clear up his speech and enunciation? So that's the thing, Maggie, that you really need to work with a speech pathologist on, because here's the thing that happens so often with late talkers as they start to communicate. So like I said about Xiao Qian's boy, when kids start to use language for the first time, so first of all, I got to tell you, bravo for the work that you have done to help work with his expressive language. So somehow he has figured out that there are words necessary to communicate with people to get the things that he wants. But just like I said before, if you were listening earlier, kids who are late talking don't learn how to focus and comprehend every word that humans are saying. And the way that humans learn how to speak and use language is by watching and listening to other humans talk. So a lot of moms have kids who have words that they might have learned from devices. They might have learned from the videos they're watching and things like that. In fact, my next question is related to that. But Maggie, what I want you to understand is that a speech pathologist needs to listen to your kiddos talking to identify what's going on, because it could be a whole, like if they're dropping off all the ends of sounds or the beginnings of sounds, or it could just be normal developmental things that are happening considering he's a late talker. And also it could be not even a true articulation disorder, but just imprecise talking due to lack of confidence in expression. So if you don't have good auditory comprehension or receptive language, that's your understanding of what other people communicate. It still can't have good communication exchange because you're like, I'm not sure what they said, what is it that it was, or I'm not even paying attention well enough, which is probably your case, not even paying attention well enough to figure out what the message is. I'm just relying mostly on what you're showing me and my visual skills to understand the generic ideas of the situation, but he may have a lot of words that he is just mimicking or saying because he's heard them before, but he just doesn't know how to use them in language. And so what you need to do is you need to get strategies to facilitate natural language from the ground up so that you can understand everything that he does know. So you have to know, if you're working on receptive language, you have to work on receptive language first. That focus, that understanding, all of that before you can start working on expressive language, even though his expressive language tested higher. It's usually because of attention that receptive language tests slow. So Maggie, what you need to do is you need to get, if you're working with a speech pathologist, you need to get them to tell you the way to facilitate language at home. And because especially with receptive language, if your child's not focused on the words you're saying and looking at your face, that's where you need to start. So again, I can really help with that stuff in my program if that's something that you have. All right, let's see. Erin has a question here, and she says, my son was a late talker. He is talking, but how do I increase his own words? More spontaneous speech rather than phrases he has heard and learned. He can come up with his own words from time to time, but you can tell he struggles. So this, Erin, is very common, a very common stage that parents are in when they find my program. And what's really good news about your situation, Erin, is that he is definitely interested in using words to communicate. He just doesn't know how to find the right words the right way at the right time. And so what he's doing is he's relying on these memorized bits of language that he connected with those experiences back, like when I talked about kids, our first early learning language, even before 18 months, right? Where you first learn that mama is mama, where you first learn that juice is juice, you know, that stuff. So that's when you need to work on showing him how spontaneous language works. And again, Erin, I would venture to say that your child is sort of selectively focusing on communication, on language. And this often comes, I don't know how old your little guy is, Erin, but it often happens as kids get older, especially older than 3 or 4. That's when they realize the social anxiety of not having a good grip on language. And then that anxiety on top of it, on top of not having language to communicate, causes kids to be even more distracted away from focusing on humans talking. So what you need to do is your boy is trying to come up with language on his own. He's trying to make up the words and the things that he needs because he doesn't know how to use words the right way at the right time. He may have learned his vocabulary in therapy or on flashcards or PEC systems or, you know, whatever else, but he didn't learn it in the moment. And that's what natural language facilitation is, and that's what you need to do. If you ever want to see natural phrases that kids are producing on their own, you have to do natural language facilitation, and you have to have natural exposure to language, Aaron, 8 to 10 hours a week. And that's from you guys at home. That's not from therapy. You know, you can't do natural language facilitation with a therapist unless you move the therapist into your house and you have them do language while you're driving in the car and while you're getting your kid dressed and giving them a bath and all those other things, because that's when language facilitation works. It's not with separate sit down at the table and do flashcards. That's speech and language work, yes, but not natural language facilitation, not showing kids how to do it. So that's what you need, Aaron, is you need to be doing natural language facilitation in unstructured functional situations so that your boy learns how to use language. And Joanne says, our 3rd grade daughter is learning how to take turns in conversation. Fabulous. How do I teach her to wait until it's appropriate time for a response? She loves to butt into conversation and blurt out answers at school. Any suggestions? So congratulations on all that fabulous language. And, you know, it's kind of a problem sometimes that people have. And, you know, they always talk about having a good problem is still a problem. Like, you know, you lose weight. Oh, no, none of my clothes fit. That's still a problem, right? And it's the same with this, with late talking. These kids, and one of the other problems that happens is kids start ordering parents around. But this little girl is so confident now in her talking that she is, I mean, I see your post, Joanne. She's reading. She's doing great stuff. So she's really confident. So you've got some really good environment. You've done such nice language facilitation, and you've empowered her to be using language. So what she's not getting is the whole social norms about turn taking in language. So your speech pathologist, Joanne, needs to be working. That this is something that speech pathologists do, is help give strategies about ways to engage in natural communication. And the thing that I would let you know first is, you know, at home, if you're doing this facilitation, let her know how it feels when she butts in and interrupts you, and acknowledge your feelings as much as you acknowledge hers, because she doesn't like it when you cut her off when she's trying to talk. It's not very fun for her. So if she does something that's not very fun for you, it's just like what I call an off boundaries kind of situation. If a child was 2 and running in the street, you wouldn't let him do it. So don't let her butt in on your conversation at school. Call her on it. You know, if she's so empowered in her language and you don't want her to go off the rails and start ordering everybody around, then you have to learn where to function those boundaries. And this is a real common issue with special needs kids. Soon as they start doing things, parents forget boundaries, and that keeps things unsafe, because kids who have great language and don't know how to stop and listen might miss directions. They might miss, you know, important safety tips or things that they're learning in their school and stuff because they're too busy talking about their own message. And that's something that is called a pragmatic issue. And especially with a child who's had a lot of issues going on with their brain like yours, I can see how pragmatic issues come up. So that's what your speech therapist needs to be targeting now that she's using this fabulous language. So if you were in my program, I'd coach you exactly how to do it. All right, Tiffany has a question. Tiffany Collier. Now, my nonverbal son just started to say, I want. Now he's using it for everything. Bless his heart. Let's see. Should I encourage this or try to get him to use other words? He used to say words when he was 3, so this is new. He used to say words when he was 3, and now he says, I want. So you say nonverbal, so I don't know if he had words and lost them or what's going on with that, but I do have an idea. Hang on, let me have a little drink here. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I see Sume came and Sheila and Marianne. Hey, Marianne and Marta are here. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Please give this video a like, and if the information is helpful, and it says now he's 5, Tiffany's boy is 5. Okay, so when he was 3, he said words, and now he's 5, and now he says I want, but he's using I want for everything. He had words and then lost them. Got it. Okay, so whatever happened during that period of time that he lost words, he had to be communicating with you somehow. So he was using probably a lot of maybe a point or bringing stuff, you know, that nonverbal things. So what you need to focus on now is sort of going back to the beginning. Like I said before, for kids who memorize things, like the kids who memorize some words, or maybe they heard, sorry, my nose is itching, excuse me. Maybe they heard words on TV or on a video or, you know, something like that, a favorite show, or a song they love over and over again. And so what happens is, so if your child had words and then lost them, and you're basically starting over, you need to really think about it that way, sort of going back to basics, and you have to do things like when they were 18 months and pre almost sometimes. It all depends on their receptive language. It depends on a lot of things. But the thing is, what happens is kids, it's not as though he was in a vacuum for the past 2 years. He may have had a period of time when he was sick, or, you know, whatever happened to cause him to lose his speech, and, you know, ear infections, whatever, and now he's feeling better. As long as he's doing better, now he can kind of get back on track. So it's sort of like he was learning language and it was working, and then things got off the rails. The train got off the rails, and then he kind of ricketed through and used something else along the way, and now maybe he's feeling better and you've got the cart back on the rails and you're trying to get speech, but that period of time, something was going on. He listened to you talking, he probably understands you, but he just doesn't, again, know how to access the words. But also in that period of time, he stopped learning how to focus and pay attention to your talking. So that's what you need to facilitate first, is really knowing if your child is understanding every word you're saying, if they're even paying attention to every word you're saying. Because you could be talking all day long, like this other mom I talked about, and still have a late talker and not know what's holding it up. And the thing is, it's kind of like wah, 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 wah. If your child's not paying attention to it, then you're wasting your breath, you know, and probably getting more frustrated. And then what happens is you get frustrated because I've been talking and he's not getting it. So then you push the issue and prompt and try to pull words out because you get frustrated that he didn't spontaneously learn them. But the problem is he wasn't paying attention in the first place. So that's usually what's going on, is they're not paying attention in the first place, and you don't even realize it because you're too busy trying to understand the nonverbal things they're trying to use to communicate with you. And it's a trap. If you fall right into it, you can't help it. You got to know what your babies want, right? So they learn how to teach you, because if it's whatever, if it's meltdowns, if it's single words, if it's I want, I mean, great, he's saying words, but they're not functional for what it is. And in that case, you need to recast and show him what words to use instead. Whenever kids communicate in language facilitation, whenever kids communicate one way and it's not the way you want, you need to recast and show them how to do it. Right words, right way, right time. And it can't be prompting, and you can't have any expectations. It literally is just natural language facilitation. And again, if you want to know, like, if that's confusing and you don't know how to put that together, you need to work with a speech pathologist to understand where you are now, because there are things that you're doing as a parent that are fabulous, that are getting words. I mean, see it all the time. Parents in here, they get their kids to talk, however they do it. And usually they don't even know how, but it just starts to happen. And then their kids move into a phase where they're imitating everything, and they'll start to imitate everything, but then they don't use words on their own. Like, they're still not using words on their own. And then parents get frustrated and they dig in harder and prompt and pull and pull and pull. And then kids don't like that. Because think about if you were learning and all day long someone said, no, that's not quite right. No, that's not quite right. Yeah, no, you used to communicate that way, but no, not quite right. Every time you tried to communicate somebody said, that's not quite right. You have to do it this way. No, that's not right. You have all day long. It happens. These parents, they dig in and they prompt all day long, and their kids run away. It pushes them away. So if you are prompting all day, the first thing you can do to help your whole family be easy, happy, safe, and fun is quit prompting. That's the number one thing I tell every parent. But there are things that you are doing that are great. I know there are, because your kids love you and your kids are communicating with you non-verbally, but you just need to know how to shift it over. And seriously, every family in my program, they all get happy because they quit this prompting, they quit the frustration, and they always see constant progress because they know what to do. They know where to get them in. All right, let's see. There was another question I had. I didn't want to leave anybody out. Okay, Kaylee from South Africa. We're getting into, this is a long one today, but I'm just going to do them all, so because people are watching. All right. So Kaylee says, hi from South Africa. Hi, Kaylee. I have soon to be 3-year-old boy. I feel he is very smart, knows his alphabet 1 to 100, colors, animals, and sounds. He also knows nursery rhymes. However, he has yet to communicate with me in sentences. If he wants something, he uses me as a tool to get him what he needs. He will be 3 on the 11th of February. Happy birthday, little guy in South Africa. What can I do to help him talk? Many thanks. All right, so that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. This little guy learned all that stuff somehow, right? How did he learn animal sounds and numbers and colors and nursery rhymes, all that stuff? My suspicion is he learned it from a device. So when kids learn from a two-dimensional device, they, especially if they watch things over and over and over again, many late talkers, in fact, most late talkers are super smart and super good at problem solving. They know how to work the technology like nobody's business. They know how to find the videos they want in multiple languages. They know how to work the algorithms. They know everything about the technology. But how much human talking does that involve? Not very much, usually, because most of the time, even if kids like to watch videos of kids like Barney or Sesame Street or things like that, a lot of times they way prefer animated videos with fast talking and music and lots of repetition and numbers flying across the screen, and they love to watch that stuff. But that stuff is not humans talking. And the way to teach children how to use words is by having them focus and pay attention to every word that humans are saying. And it may be a challenge for you to get your child's attention away from a device. They're super interesting and super exciting, into focusing and looking at humans, but I know how to do it. So that's what you need to work on. The only way that you are going to teach your child how to use words functionally is by making sure that they hear the right words the right way, the right time. They focus on those words when you say them at least 8 to 10 hours a week. An hour and a half a day on average. Some days you might get less than an hour and a half, but other days you have to get more. And these, the right words, the right way, at the right time, must be during your everyday activities. That's the only way it works. So, like I said, it's a very, very common thing. I have families, and this child could be late talking primarily because of the device, which makes it easy to overcome, because think about it. If it's just a habit that you have to change in order to learn language functionally, and then you can get on a path and learn language the right way, isn't that the solution that you want, right? That's why language facilitation and waves of communication is so cool, because it teaches parents how to do it. It teaches you how to be your child's speech and language facilitator, right? So there's Sume, who knows this very true, as she's in my program, who says, my son, my nonverbal boy, is using sentences now. Yay! It's been about a year for you. Like, I want to watch video. I want to watch video. I want food. I want to go to school, and so on. I need to go to the toilet. How would I increase more? All right, so he's using this language for his needs, primarily to communicate his needs. And the way that you need to do that is get some, you can jump in the group, because I can give you some specific coaching about your little guy. But just to give you an idea, it's really important that you facilitate language for all different purposes, right? Because we don't only use language for requesting. We use language to share experiences, share share feelings, share ideas, and introduce novel things that are in our head coming up. I mean, these kids are smart. That's why I talk about this program, sharing kids' wisdom. Every parent in my program learns from their kids. They learn from the process of doing it, and then when their kids are able to have language, it's amazing the things that they're teaching their moms. So that's the thing. It's really, really important that you do language facilitation during those times. So you need to get strategies, not just for requesting and how to do that, but how to share experiences. So it's important that you use the phrases that are not just request-based. Look at the sunshine. It's raining. This food tastes terrible. This kitty is soft. All the things to sort of talk about your environment are also really important for you to facilitate language. And so many parents of late talking kids are so focused on, I just have to know what he wants. Like the very basic language that I need is just need to be able to meet his needs, because that's your first instinct, right? Is just to meet their needs. Is he healthy? Is he happy? Is he warm? Is he fed? Is he, that stuff for your kids. And so that's the language that always comes first, because that's what you naturally facilitate, because that's what you need to know. And now that he's using that language regularly with really nice sentences, now you need to start to facilitate sentences about the casual things that you do in your life. Like, look at the sun, it's raining, it's cold today. And think about how much you're talking. And I know this mom, I'm just going to call her out, is a pretty quiet mom, and you have a little baby. So I know that your attention may be away. Busy parents, you're working full time, then you come home, you've got to cook, you've got to keep the kids clean and fed, you've got to keep the house fed, you've got to have some rest at some point. It's very challenging. And that's why you need to focus in your head, Sume, about what kind of language are you demonstrating, and is he listening to you? Is he making sure that he understands all the phrases that you're using during your everyday talking? So that's it. All right, let's see. One more question, and then I'm going to get out of here. Let's see. Yamini says, my daughter has Down syndrome and is turning 3 next month. She just says Papa, that too with a lot of prompting. How can I be sure if she's a late talker or if it's apraxia? So with Down syndrome, especially with little kids, they classically have what's called low tone in their whole body. So that's why they have these happy round faces, is because the muscles naturally are not moving very well. And so that's a big reason for late talking. Almost all kids with Down syndrome are late talking, because it just kind of takes more oomph to get their muscles moving, because they're just sort of low tone about it. And they get really good at nonverbal communication. So if she's going to be 3, she must be using a lot of things to communicate. It's very difficult for me to tell if she's apraxia just because she's not talking, but it's not typical necessarily of a child to be diagnosed with apraxia, especially if they have Down syndrome, because there are other things you might be able to do that are natural language that have to do just with the tone issue. Apraxia is a neurological problem with communication of the signals of the motor things with the brain. And low tone is just like low tone if your muscles get flabby. But this is something that happens sort of from a neurological level, from a genetic level with kids who have Down syndrome. So it's something that you have to help compensate for. So those kids that you see on TV or whatever that have nice, clear, articulated speech, they have to work really hard to sort of overcome those weak muscles in their mouth to use careful speech. So at even an early stage, it's important to help your child do a lot of moving with their mouth that's functional, that they learn to do themselves, and celebrate that natural speech. So you should be working with a speech pathologist to give you the strategies you need. I could do that for you if you don't have a speech pathologist, but you definitely need to have one. And that's why my program is a lifetime program, because it's a never-ending process for this language facilitation. It's really important that you as parents learn how to do it, it. And then as your kids move to the next level, you get new strategies to help them move to the next level. And then you get new strategies to help them move to the next level. And that's how you know that you're going to be, moving forward and continuing to make progress. And that's why sometimes kids get stuck in a lack of progress going to speech therapy, because they just do sort of the same thing over and over again, and parents don't facilitate in between sessions. And you absolutely have to, like I said, at least 8 to 10 hours of natural language exposure every week you have to do for language facilitation. And if your child has blockages to communication because they aren't paying attention to you, because they're distracted by devices, that they are they have difficulty hearing, if they're not well, if they have gut issues, all those things, we need to figure out what's going on so that you can help them, help your child overcome those things and set up their system to be able to learn language well. So, all right, everybody, this is a long video. I've been at it 45 minutes. Really nice Q&A session. Thank you to all the moms who joined me. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you so much for joining me today. I do these live Q&As every week. Look for my notices. You can put a question in next week, and I'll answer your question about your late talking child. If you any of this resonated with you and you feel like you want to get the exact strategies you need to help your child learn how to use language, in my custom language facilitation program, Waves of Communication is a parent coaching program where I teach you, I empower you, I equip you so that you can empower and equip your kiddos to use natural language, the natural language you long to hear for all the things you want, just like the moms that are joining me. There's Monica. Here's another mom in my Waves of Communication system. So I've got people from all different countries here. Sume's in Australia, and Monica's in Sweden, and Xiao Qian's in US. I've got people in 10 countries who are using this. And because it's a lifetime program, if you move house, if you move country, if you move state, if you move whatever, you still have access to that training because it's a lifetime program. It's an incredible value. And I'm able to do it because I do it online in my community. Parents are doing the work themselves and seeing better progress than I ever did when I was doing therapy one-on-one, working with kids directly. So language facilitation absolutely works. In this program over the year, nearly 40 families, dozens of families, no matter what age, have seen improvements in their kiddos. And I know you can too. So just take the plunge. Until the end of the week, I'm just giving you this out there. Until the end of the week, the 10th, I'm giving $200 off if you mention my birthday in your strategy session. If you want to know how to book a strategy session, talk to me about your kiddo and learn exactly how Waves of Communication would work for you and your family, then you can go to my website, wavesofcommunication.com. There's a free class, and there's all the program details, including the cost. So you can find out everything even before you book a session with me, where I can talk about your family and your situation, and then you can make a decision and get your kiddo talking. 3 to 6 weeks is all it takes for you to make real change. And many families see improvement in the first week, especially older kids. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining me, everybody. So much for joining me today on my video. Again, give me a like, share if you want, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and I will see you all on my next live video.